Good morning on this Sunday, August 4th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. A political showdown in the Peach State as the Harris and Trump campaigns descend on Georgia. Also, Georgia's school chief now says the AP class that focuses on African American studies violates state law. And Delta's CEO takes to the airwaves to apologize to stranded passengers and announce the airline is suing after a massive tech outage. Kathy, Phil, Theron, and Martha are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
There's no doubt Georgia is one of these stops on the road to the White House. Former President Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance campaigning this weekend in Atlanta as Vice President Kamala Harris rallied Georgia Democrats Tuesday.
You all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
Thousands of enthusiastic supporters turned out for the Harris for President campaign rally. The presumptive Democratic nominee wasted no time in taking aim at her Republican rival, Donald Trump, calling the former president and his running mate a threat to freedom and democracy.
Ours is a fight for the future, and it is a fight for freedom. Across our nation, we are witnessing a full-on assault on hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. The freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to live without fear of bigotry and hate.
It's a big week for Vice President Harris, who will announce her running mate and then plans to come back to Georgia Friday, this time a campaign stop in Savannah. Martha, to you first this week. You can definitely notice a difference in enthusiasm among Democrats, both at our campaign events and in the polling. So what do Republicans need to do to stay on top in these battleground states like Georgia?
Yeah, I think that what we need to understand is this is going to be a honeymoon period for Kamala Harris. I mean, I think the best thing that Joe Biden ever did timing-wise in his life was to decide to get rid out of the race on the Sunday after the Republican convention, because he kind of killed that bump with that timing on that. And we've got to keep doing our game, but also understand there is going to be a honeymoon period through the Democratic convention. It's one of those things, but we got to keep being on issues because, quite frankly, the voters are getting to know Kamala Harris, and she's changed her positions on a lot of things compared to where she was a month or 2 or 3 months ago. So people are learning who she is. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are going into areas where people don't agree with them. They're doing interviews. They ought to do all that kind of stuff kind of under the radar now, and then after the Democratic convention hit the ground running.
Let's talk about one of those issues, because Republicans, they're focusing on issues like inflation and, of course, the border. And Democrats this week were really pushing back on whether the vice president is or was the border czar.
Well, yeah, let me answer your question quickly. Conversation around the economy and inflation and the border crisis, because it is a crisis, will definitely come up. But what I want to talk about is the rally. Okay, the rally was electric, and I'm sitting there, and it reminded me of 2008. And I said, man, this is what a movement feels like. And it was truly a movement. Shout out to Georgia State for hosting a great rally. It was 10,000 people there, mixed from all over the state of Georgia, all over the region, young, older, seasoned voters, gay, straight, Hispanic, Latino, Asian. I mean, you saw the Democratic coalition back together. And the one thing that I also want to focus on is that the money that's been raised, $310 million. 90% of those folks are people who have given $200 or less. 60% of these people, almost 70% of them, 2/3 are people who have never contributed to a campaign. So as my good friend Martha talks about momentum, and her and Phil know this, is that, yeah, we're going to have this bump, and we'll have another bump after the convention. But after Labor Day, as Kathy's mentioned, we're going to have the money, the momentum, and the coalition together to win this race.
Just one really quick statement. The money's important, no doubt about it. But what nobody's covering in the coverage, and this is the problem with the way the coverage has been, is half of that money was already raised by Joe Biden long before this happened. It was just shifted over to her.
Respectfully disagree, Martha. This money that we've seen since last Sunday, so not this past Sunday, but when my life changed at 1:47 p.m., okay, has been all new money that the Harris campaign has been directed to raise themselves. Now, there has been some donors who were planning to maybe give to Joe Biden who now decide to give to the Harris campaign. So I just push back on that narrative. This is $310 million of new money that's coming to her campaign. And then she will inherit the Biden infrastructure along with a lot of money that he's already raised.
All right, Phil. Well, do you want to
there's going to be a lot of money on
fine.
both sides. And this will be one of the most expensive races, I think, in the country when it comes to the 6 swing states that we've been talking about on the show. The contrast is great with Georgia. Yes, it's a battleground state. I still think, and I'll quote Matt Towery, our longtime pollster, I think Trump still is up by about 2 points as we tape. But it's competitive. Yes, there's been a bump. We all, I think, agree on that because there were so declining poll numbers for Biden, and of course the lack of funding for Biden, and he was pushed out. Now there is enthusiasm on the Democrat side, but that's the Democrat base. The key, as we've talked about, is the independent votes. And this for the rally, I have to get a kick out of it. Some of the TV stations were interviewing people leaving the Democrat rally at Georgia State, and the question was, what is Kamala Harris's biggest accomplishment? Nobody could answer the question. And so she's got to define herself, and she will, but the Republicans are also defining her for the independent votes. I think both bases are fired up, but the independents have still got to be with Trump for him to win in those 6 states.
Go ahead, Kathy, because I mean, obviously the Harris campaign is making a play for these independent voters, and many of them are suburban women who live right here in Georgia.
Well, yeah, and let me just say, as somebody who's run a bunch of different races myself, as a candidate, she's like the luckiest election candidate on the planet. She gets to like jump in with 100 days to run to be president and inherit sort of the campaign infrastructure and not have to decide what color the yard signs are going to be. That usually takes the first 2 months of any campaign. But that said, you know, she's jumped in, she's just kind of like knocked it off and done all the right things. And I think what you're going to see is she's going to define herself during the entire week of the convention. And she has a fresh slate to do it. Democrats are going to tell a great story and are going to line this out. And then we're going to go right into the last, 90 days, 60 days. And, I think she'll be real solid.
Martha, talk about this enthusiasm among I know you're Republican, but among the Democrats, because there was so much controversy before she got into this race as the front runner. The Republicans would say, well, Democrats don't want her. Democrats don't want to get behind her. And yet here she is with all of this enthusiasm behind her.
I have never seen anything like it in my life, okay, as far as someone coalescing so quickly. But clean slate or blank slate, whatever you said, is the right thing, because I don't think people really know what she stands for. And I'm not saying that as a criticism. I'm saying that as that she hasn't been the person out there saying her policies. She has been the VP for Joe Biden. So I think that's what I do speak for those exurban and suburban women that are sometimes squishy Republicans and go back and forth, okay? I like Nikki Haley. I still am unabashedly a Nikki Haley supporter, okay? So I am the woman that both of these campaigns should be trying to win over. So I think I have a little bit to say about it because I'm living this existence right now, okay? So it is important that I think that she defines herself, and the scrubbing by the media of the past. You have news organization changing headlines from stories from 3 years ago about her. Now that is unheard of, and that's wrong. You should not go back and try to change what the press coverage was. So look, yes, she's very lucky, and it's going to be a very tight race, and I wish her well. I really do. But I think that last night she was off script when the prisoner exchange people came home, and she was back to the word salad. So she's got a lot of work to do.
Theron.
Yeah, look, so we don't have enough time to really talk about this woman's accomplishments, right? I mean, but just to give our viewers a snapshot, to sort of say that no one knows who she is and no one knows her record is just blatantly false. This is a woman who started her career as a prosecutor. She went on to become a district attorney. She went on to become an attorney general from California. She ran for president, and she talked about issues like a woman's right to choose. She talked about criminal justice reform. Yes, she's going to have to answer some tough questions because Republicans are going to try to distort her record as a prosecutor and an attorney general. She went on to be a vice president of the United States of America, has focused on a lot of things to help the economy, help education, to really try to help small businesses. Martha, she's been here almost 15. Hold on.
You and I are inside people.
See,
wait, no. I just got to make this.
No. We're not gonna have like you had last week. I'm trying not to.
I'm not doing that.
Okay.
I'm not.
Let him finish, and then you can make your point.
Okay.
But to say that no one knows who she is and she doesn't have a record is just not right. Now, do they know her as a presidential candidate? To Kathy's point, that's why you raise the money. That's why you go to battleground states like Wisconsin and Georgia. That's why you have the TV ads. That's why you basically have a convention to lay out your platform. And so I'm just going to not let Republicans discredit this black woman who is a black woman, and no matter what Donald Trump tells you at the National Association of Black Journalists, she's been black all her life, and Donald Trump cannot tell me that he understands anything about the black experience. And she's going to answer the question about her race. She's going to talk about gender, the sexism that exists in this country. And I think that, look, now, when we get into September, once everything has come out, she will be attacked, and she will be able to talk about what she's going to do as president.
Martha, 15 seconds.
You and I are people that look at this stuff. I guarantee you the average independent voter cannot make the list that you just listed. My point was, those people don't know who she is. So I really think that's an unfair attack on me.
All right.
Attack.
Okay.
I just push back on what you said.
We're going to leave it there.
Respectfully.
Lots more to discuss. Up next, Georgia's school chief now says an AP African American Studies class violates Georgia's law. We'll discuss next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
The fight to teach an AP African American Studies course takes a new twist this week. Georgia School Superintendent Richard Woods is now claiming the course violates Georgia's divisive concepts law. Kathy, to you first on this issue this week. A lot of twists and turns and a lot of confusion on this issue.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this looks like just a serious political problem that he's caused for himself, right? You know, he just came out of the box shooting at this topic. I think he did the wrong thing there. Martha's going to actually say things that make sense about this, but in my mind, you know, he ought to be removed from this position, because you can't just come out and make a decision and then go back and backfill with the things that you want to backfill on. And then when you get to this point about Georgia's, you know, kind of decisive law that says you can't talk about things that might get people upset, that's no way to run an education system. People have got to learn how to talk through issues and think through themselves and make an analysis. And, you know, sometimes that includes things that make them uncomfortable. And I think he's done a poor job for our outstanding students who need this AP class.
And Martha, I know you weren't here last week, but we talked about how poor the communication was handled on this whole issue.
Oh, no doubt about it. And look, I am on the State Board of Education, so I want to be completely clear about that. And we did not vote on this. We did not know about it. We heard about it like everybody else did. But I've done a lot of research since. And look, Richard Woods, I like him personally. He made a huge mistake in all of the statements he's made related to this. The statute that he quoted actually has an exception for AP courses, okay? And I think that it's a huge mistake, and we are probably going to be taking it up in our next meeting. I haven't seen the agenda yet, but it's going to be something that has got to be talked about. Now, I want to be very fair. I don't like AP courses because they're not available to everyone. And in some school systems, they pay the fees, and in other school systems, they don't. So it's not a level playing field. I would much rather have a very good course that's available to everyone than necessarily an AP course. But with that said, this particular situation was handled poorly.
Theron.
Look, I mean, superintendent came out and basically said that he could have been communicated better. So first thing is that he also admitted that that was handled poorly. Republicans criticized him, Democrats criticized him. Lisa Searcy, who sat here last week, I thought did a really good job of pointing out the facts and how this came about. And I think the other thing is that he's now trying to unring this bell, and you can't unring the bell once you've put it out there. So this is something that everyone should be very concerned about. And now to say, hey, we want to look at the legality of it, that to me is just sort of a very sort of cop out to an issue that honestly he should have actually talked to his board. He should have talked to other people. He should have talked to educators. And I think people would have told him in this climate, right now in this country, to do what he did is just unacceptable.
And to do what he did so close to the school year, Phil.
Yeah.
Timing.
Well, I agree, and we were very critical of him last week for the communication, for not telling the school board, not telling the governor. When you have, to Theron's point, yeah, this is pretty controversial when you're dealing with race. And so now, yeah, I think he's trying to, as you say, Theron, unring the bell. But he did finally come out with a statement that did talk about, when he read this, several sections appear to violate, according to him, state law, which talks about divisive concepts, and you can't shame people on the count of race. You can't say that America's a systemic racist nation, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's a section, not to get too much in the weeds, about intersectionality, and that is it's something that was on the campus that says, oh, people have privilege sometimes and others don't. So it's anti-white, you could say. So He should have studied this. It should have gone before the school board. It should have been the topic of a debate before he just rolls out some vague press release.
Okay, let's move on. Georgia officials are urging residents to use a new website, a state website, to cancel voter registrations for those who move out of state or pass away, addressing Republican concerns about invalid registrations. However, the site's launch by Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger faced issues when a glitch exposed sensitive information like dates of birth, driver's license numbers, and the last 4 digits of Social Security numbers. Kathy, this was a big oops.
Well, it was, and it's not the first one coming out of this office. You know, they took about 1.5 years implementing their new Jarvis system when they said, oh, we're going to do it next week, we're going to do it 2 months from now, and now we're going to do it next year. And I think they need to sort of stop announcing things and kind of get it right the first time. But to expose people's private information is a serious problem. Fortunately, the press actually sort of held back the information until actually they closed the loop, but I'm more concerned about individuals going in with people's personal information and canceling registrations, especially this close to an election. It's like, stop the madness. Stop changing rules. Stop implementing new things. We are a month away from early voting starting, and we need to just settle down and kind of go with what we have.
Martha?
You know, honestly, we do need a way that when people move around, that it's an easier, more streamlined way. We are involved in this ERIC program where, they can, if you move to another state, there's some communication that goes on. So this was a big mistake. I don't really like the idea of people going in individually and taking care of it because you can lead to other things, who are logging in for other people, that sort of thing. But we've got to find a way to do that, because as we are one of the fastest growing states, that means we have people moving in and moving out, and we've got to have a way to fix this.
Again, it was communicated wrong. I think Martha and Kathy did a really good job of telling you, sort of the trust and verify that comes on. You got to trust that your Secretary of State has good intentions around trying to tell people to go onto a site and unregister themselves. But again, it was not rolled out properly. There should have been a conversation to sort of talk about the stats. And if we have a problem with people moving out of the state and not unregistering themselves, then give those numbers first before you come out and present this plan. And then to not have the website work, that was bad.
Well, I agree with that. In fact, usually when you're rolling out a system, you have some test runs, to your point. I don't understand why the test runs didn't see this. It is serious, that all of this personal information is out. So a horrible glitch.
All right, up next, we hear from Delta CEO Ed Bastian after a massive computer outage impacts thousands of passengers.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
In an interview on CNBC, Delta's CEO Ed Bastian announced this month's massive IT outage, which stranded thousands of passengers, will cost the airline about $500 million. The outage, caused by a failed CrowdStrike software update, led to the cancellation of over 5,000 flights and disrupted Microsoft systems globally. Now, Bastian stated that Delta will seek damages, saying, quote, "We have no choice." Theron, he apologized to customers. I think he should have come out sooner, because he always does a good job when he has to answer to questions like this in terms of crisis communications.
Ed Bastian is one of the best. I think we all agree. If you can put him on camera, give him an opportunity to just, sometimes maybe even go off script, right? And just be very authentic and apologetic. That's what people like about him. And he did it. Yes, a little too late, but he did it. And I think that as someone who've experienced this, I was very upset. You literally depend on Delta to help you get to your family back home, and sometimes get to your businesses, to travel all over the world. And to have it happen, and really people didn't know, and I'm glad you clarified that it was CrowdStrike, not Microsoft. And so I know last week Microsoft was mentioned. Full disclosure, Microsoft is a client. I want to clear that up. Going forward, now what I've noticed, as I was stuck last Friday, and I apologize to the viewers, I couldn't get on. You do see a level of sensitivity around the passengers. We in Atlanta, we love Delta. Delta is a large private employer in this state, and so we understand that glitches do happen. But I think now, going forward, you literally have got to make sure that if you have a day of meeting or something, you got to give a little slack to them to clean it up. And then lastly, I think this investigation will give Delta an opportunity to really pull the hood up a little bit and really figure out operationally what things they can do better. But ultimately, Ed Bastian is right to come out and apologize to the people. And I think Delta handled it the Delta way. And going forward, I think we got to really figure out that the technology is safe and secure.
Yeah, Phil?
Well, I think Ed Bastian still needs to continue the apology tour. And I think that especially especially with all the passengers. Some of the complaints, and there were many, sadly, but was that people didn't get a text because they didn't know if their flight was going to go or not going to go. I think last week I said it was 5,000 cancellations. It was up to 6,000. 6,000. And so I do think, yeah, they need to take a look at the technology. Now, CrowdStrike, I wouldn't be surprised if they sued that company. That was just horrible to have that meltdown.
But when you sign a deal with a company like CrowdStrike, I don't know how much of Delta you sign away on this, because it's really hard to,
That's a good point.
With the glitches, it's really hard to control that, Kathy.
Well, and honestly, the messaging I got out of that is like, first thing you do is lawyer up and find somebody to sue and blame. What I would have preferred was a whole lot more of the communication to the passengers that were inconvenienced. I had a friend that was coming back from Alaska. It took 4 or 5 days to get back. Maybe this is a Tom Brady moment. I'm still not forgiving him for spending that kind of money. Bring him out here to explain what the heck happened. See how he does.
You'll never forget that.
I will never forget that. I'm still waiting on the call. I could do it.
He's a great guy.
Well, and they had a big rollout of a new program that was supposed to happen, and they had to put that off. So this affected them in a lot of other ways other than the flights. But for the individual people, there's nothing worse, because all of us do this. You plan your flights really tight. You're trying to get from one place. You might have a couple of hours built in, but you don't have a whole day built in, so it's a problem.
I also want to make sure that Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport gets a little credit in this as well. They managed it. People were literally sleeping on the floors. They used MARTA to get out of there as much as they can. But I want to particularly congratulate the MARTA team, but also the airport team, but particularly with the new leadership of Jan Lennon, who's an interim GM. There were a lot of folks that were at the airport. They had to really figure out what they did with these folks overnight.
And they opened up the lines of communications immediately. So they did a great job in communicating there. All right, thanks everybody. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
I'll give a big shout out to the Falcons for selling out their season tickets for the first time in 20 years. Congrats to them, even though I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Theron, we got to get our tickets again this year.
We'll get them. I don't want to see all those towels.
It's a tradition now. Go ahead.
All right, my first winner is going to be John Goodman. He was actually on the Delta flight with me last week. Phil, Martha, he said he's a Republican. He disagrees with what I say, but he watches the show, so shout out to him.
Well, we like him.
Yeah, you like him. So also shout out to Pamela Hudson in Villa Rica. I saw her at the Kamala Harris rally. She's a big fan of the show. And also I want to wish Scott Orr, who is retiring from Georgia Power. Scott Orr, thank you for all that you've done for so many of us. You changed my life. You changed my career. Brother, we're going to get a nice bottle of whiskey pretty soon to have an opportunity to celebrate. And then lastly, I want to make Superintendent Richard Woods a loser. You probably know I have not made a loser on this show in a very long time, so he's my loser. And also, I want to mention this name, Sonia Massey. We have not talked about it on the show. There was a horrific murder that happened in Illinois, and so definitely want to give my condolences to the Sonia Massey family.
All right, Martha.
Raphael Ammons, he is a guy that watches the show. We bumped into each other this week. He took a selfie with me, and then he said he's got to send it to his friend, and he's got to get a selfie with Theron. So it's great. Raphael, it was great to meet and talk to you. A loser this week is really the deal related to Gitmo. Major Cole Hogan Jr. and Edna Stevens were Gainesville people that died in the World Trade Towers, in the Pentagon. And I just think the deal was bad, and that the terrorists didn't want to die, but they didn't mind that 3,000 people died. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, Kathy.
I want to say my winner, and I know we try to keep a Georgia focus, but the hostage release that the Biden administration negotiated was really just amazing, and I'm just so relieved, particularly that Paul Whelan, got out after 6 years. So thanks to the president for that. My losers are the Georgia Bulldogs that keep speeding around Athens. You've had a death of a player and another member of the Bulldog family. We want to be proud of what you do off the field as well as proud of what you do on the field. So hopefully they'll stop being losers and straighten up.
All right, Phil.
Well, I think a loser is the mainstream corporate media because, to Martha's point earlier in the show, they're trying to erase history with regard to some of the radical positions that Kamala Harris has, from everything from giving citizenship to all the amnesty to illegal aliens to no fracking. She said now she might be in favor of fracking. It goes on and on. And also, I think she's a winner no matter what the Young Thug trial is going to do, is Superior Court Judge Paige Whitaker. She's the third judge. She's trying to streamline it, speed it up. I don't know if that's going to work. There may be a mistrial, but I think she's got her hands full, and she was very unlucky, but she's a winner.
Well, she's vowed to pick up the pace.
I need to add one thing that my son will be very upset if I don't bring it up. My oldest son, Chip, his birthday is today, and I wish you happy birthday, Chip. I'm so proud of you.
Well, we actually have extra time, and it's never happened to winners and losers. Y'all got anything else?
Well, let's talk about these Falcons for a second. No, listen, I am expecting a big season from the Falcons. New coach, new talent, and to sell out and going into the season is great. So I encourage all our Falcons fans to rally behind this team.
New quarterback.
New quarterback, yeah.
2 new quarterbacks.
I always cheer for the Falcons unless they play the Steelers, so I'm with you on that.
Well, I feel like we're going to have a really good season, and yeah, don't bring all those towels.
I'm going to bring my towel, Theron. All right. Thanks, everybody. Make it a great week. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.